which company do you think will join that $1 trillion market capitalization in India? Because clearly it seems like it's at least 8 to 10 years away for us.
Yes. Well, there is the way we look at it. So there are two, three things why this 1 trillion will happen. First of all, there is this, if you look at it from a macro perspective, we are at 7% GDP growth, and gradually we expect this to reach the previous cycle peak of around 9%. And in doing so, we also expect that cyclically the profit to GDP, which is currently at around 5%, might reach the previous peak of 7%. Now, so here what is happening, unlike the last time, is that valuations are at almost all-time high. So we don't expect any P re-rating to define these $1 trillion companies. What we expect is that a peak of the profit to GDP cycle, which will be reached over the next, till about 2032, will be the primary driver. So when we have that 7% profit to GDP and similar price to earning ratios, we believe that the first $1 trillion company might emerge in India. Now, without getting into speculation, the way we have formulated which companies could make it to the 1 trillion mark is that these companies, the hurdle rate required for their market cap to expand to 1 trillion should be in the range of their profit growth that they have shown in the past, so that we don't get into speculative area. So the primary company which comes into to our mind is that the HDFC Bank, which requires around 25% hurdle rate, and we have seen that historically it has grown at around 20% growth in terms of profit. And the valuations are at, historically a little lower compared to other stocks. So that is the company which has the minimum, hurdle rate in terms of its past performance to reach that. Secondly, if you look at Reliance also, if it manages to increase its profit growth from this 13-14% that it has been generating in the past to around 20% range, without any re-rating in PE, it should be another stock which can hit the 1 trillion mark. And the third stock where the hurdle rate is in sync with its past growth is Bajaj Finance. If it continues to grow at that 35-40% growth, then it can hit that $1 trillion mark. So that's how we have formulated this whole framework of $1 trillion company.
Vinod, this is Vinny joining in the conversation as well. And interestingly, you have picked out those two financial names which are making the list of this 1 trillion for you. But, you did highlight in terms of, obviously, GDP as a factor is important, right? So in terms of mainly the expansion there that you're expecting in terms of the GDP, if that doesn't move through in the right direction, then that would be hampered in terms of these company growths, or would there be anything else that you would look out for?
Yeah, so the primary driver, if you look at the previous cycle also, till 2007-8, we reached around that 9% GDP and 7% profit to GDP. While surprisingly, if you see the PE of the market at that point in time was not very high. It was around this 20-21 times, which we are currently having. So I think this is very important because I don't think there is a scope for PE to expand further in an environment where we are ending the ultra low interest rate environment where valuations could have gone higher. So we don't see any scope for valuation expansion. But clearly, if we are into a cycle where the profit to GDP will peak out in the next decade, at the peak of it, we envisage these companies to form that $1 trillion companies.
Sure, point taken. But what I'm intrigued about, Vinod, is also the fact that the current second, third largest company, which is, I think, TCS for that matter, is not featuring in your list. Now, even in terms of the multiple expansion or earnings expansion, one would expect it to grow in double digits, right? Is that something which you expect to slow down? Or what's the take? Why is it not featuring in your list?
Actually, it is very simple. It's got to do with, as I said, the companies which we have highlighted, their past growth is in the close proximity to the hurdle rate in market cap expansion. So for TCS to reach 1 trillion, it has a hurdle rate of, I think, excess of 20%. Whereas if you see their earnings growth over the last decade or for a longer period of time, it is much lower than that. So to expect it to, double its earnings growth from here, where we are actually seeing that the growth environment is slowing down for them, looks like a tall ask, basically. That's the problem with this thinking.
Right, Vinod, thank you so much for joining in with us, and I'm sure we're going to connect a lot more now, but 2032 is for sure when we'll be connecting and figuring out which one actually reached that 1 trillion mark as well. So thank you so much, Vinod, for joining in with us this afternoon and giving us this interesting data points on that 1 trillion company, Anisha, dollar company. Which one is that going to be? That's something interesting. But markets